Hello everyone, and welcome for a deep dive into the storytelling of Gris, a platformer that acts as a vehicle for a beautiful exploration into what is often an emotionally charged experience. While playing through these wonderful watercolor landscapes and puzzling our way through ruins, we are grappling with a state of grief and loss. However, the game is not wholly focused on any singular bleak moment. Rather, it uses a mostly ambiguous moment as a means for allowing the player to make their own associations. This is important, as Gris is instead a game focused on growth and healing, and it does a great job of bringing the player along for the experience. While I normally try to keep personal anecdotes out of these videos, considering the nature of the discussion today and everyone's individual experience with the topic of grief, I think I'll have to make a few personal connections to avoid generalizations. I don't think there's any one path to approaching loss, and I certainly don't want to make any assumptions to how others process their emotions. It's my hope with this video to simply showcase what I found to be a great example of ambiguous storytelling, not to dictate one path over any other. There will be small story reveals ahead, but I'll do my best to keep things as vague as I can. I do very much want for you to experience this game as your own. Should you gather all the collectibles, probably not done by accident, but not impossible, there is a cutscene providing some more concrete context for the game's story. Personally, while of course touching and emotional, it's not the part of the game I want to focus on. Instead, I think it's much more interesting to highlight how the game invites the player to make their own connections. The structure of the game directly references the common 5 stages of grief. Even the achievements list them by name. That being said, much like my exposure to grief in life, the arc of the game can experience progress in equal step with setback. We are wordlessly introduced to our character as they attempt to sing to themselves in this trying time, when suddenly, we lose our voice and are dropped from our perch on a crumbling statue. Tumbling through the void, we land in a colorless, undefined world. Throughout the game, by exploring and unlocking puzzles, we begin to return color to our world. This is no arbitrary errand of finding the colors and splashing them back onto the ground and walls. Instead, rediscovering the colors adds new architecture and pathways. Plants and creatures return life to our world. It grants us strength and abilities. All of this interacting together and allowing us to carry on. There seems to be no wasted symbolism in the environment of Gris. The music is just as important to the story, starting out with singing, being reduced to minimalism, and gradually building again in scope as we progress. This results in a culminating moment in the story, as the entire arrangement finally builds together and we come to a resolution, all without a single word ever spoken. Dotting our path in the game are points of light, dots of brightness that dance along and follow us, and with their shining light, they forge new paths. These new pathways then allow us to navigate our way back up through the ruins and continue on our journey. During our discoveries, we can happen along strange creatures of different varieties. Much like the people we interact with in our lives, some of them are helpful, though most are busy with their own goings-ons, and we must continue with our journey as well. After the opening cinematic, we are allowed to explore our new, muted surroundings. The environment is simple, inked outlines and silhouettes of natural features. Once we find our direction, we trudge our way through the void, with the only thing of meaning breaking through the emptiness is the heavy and depressing imagery of the crumbled statue we once stood on. The opening of the game, between the attempts at singing and resulting descent to a world devoid of description, represents denial. In my own experiences, this resonates all too well. Looking back, it seems that the harder I pushed things away, it became the only things I could focus on. Everything else dropped away and didn't even seem real. With the first real stage in Gris, we are given red as our first color. As we make our way through, however, we are at risk of being swept away by the wind. Large looming clouds blow in and sweep our character off their feet. This represents the stage known as anger, a strong emotion that can consume everything and often leaves us further back on our path than when the storm originally started. There is no real singular enemy right now. Instead, it seems like the world itself is against us. Indeed, we're also granted our first powers in the game, turning into a square and a double jump. The square allows us to get very dense and stomp around, even breaking objects and smashing through floors. It seems a pretty destructive power at the moment, but it does allow us to make progress, so we use it. The double jump is less interactive, but it does allow us to reach new heights as well as float across gaps. With enough practice, it's discovered that the gusty winds can be utilized to increase this distance even further. After forcing our way through storm after turbulent storm, and eventually climbing above it all, we are introduced to our next color, green. It's here that life begins to creep back into our world, as there are plants and more diverse creatures dotting the environments. Exploring the ruins again reveal new areas open to us, and we gather more points of light for our journey. This part of the game is meant to represent the next stage of processing, known as bargaining. Obstacles respond to actions we make. A creature helps us on our way after we help them back to their den. And we're forced to confront our antagonist with our limited toolset. It's during this time, our first face-to-face encounter with the Black Void, that we discover how to use the power of our anger, not as a simple, destructive, blunt force, but instead as a tool. Here I was reminded that growth is not a linear goal to simply arrive at. It is a winding path to be learned from in order to proceed. The void takes the shape of a great bird and attempts to blow us away with the storm winds of anger. Instead, we use the strength we learned from anger and make ourselves into a foundation to successfully weather the storms. Doubling our square form with our ability to float, we actually discover that we can use the bird's attacks to further our progress. As a calming rain washes over the ruins, blue is returned to our world, and we can now explore flooded areas with our new swimming ability. Despite the calming steadiness brought into the new stage, this represents the next step, depression. While there is the common association of someone sad feeling blue, I found this imagery to be even more relatable. As often for me, times of depression can feel like an all-surrounding, crushing weight. Swim through it as I may, it covers all angles. Navigating our way back through new sections of the ruins, we slip into the routine of solving puzzles and gathering lights. There are areas that lack consistent lighting, and we often find ourselves bumping around in the dark. It's during this bleak environment our antagonist returns again. It seems that we can't get away despite our efforts. But in a seeming deus ex machina, a creature we had returned light to earlier returns and drives off the great void. While it may seem to be a random intervention, I think it shows the strength of having friends and the importance of help when you need it. As we're returned to the familiarity of our base ruins, a fourth color returns to our world: yellow, and all the light that comes with it. With this final illumination of our world, even the structures that have crumbled to dust can be seen with the memory of their full splendor. Representing acceptance, we can now travel through our world, remembering it as it was, but acknowledging that it is different now. Gazing out over all the phantom ruins and rebuilt crumbling statues, we rediscover our ability to sing, bringing further vibrancy to life and their interactions. Gathering the final points of light and using the strength and abilities we gained on our journey, we ascend to the stars on a staircase of constellations. Just as we begin feeling confidence in the culmination of our journey, Black Void surges from below, stronger than ever, destroying everything in its path, absorbing all it touches. Our character is quickly consumed by the entity. As its inky darkness takes the last of us, our character chooses to sing. Despite the looming darkness, the weight of their situation, they reach inside of themselves and find the strength to sing. As they sing, the darkness begins to fall and drip away, eventually being ripped away as a fully vibrant world explodes into view. The full breadth of the score reaches its height, and finally, we are free to be whole again. The game gives no name to this shape-shifting entity, and the achievements offer no insight either. But I feel we have a pretty big clue regardless. Given the focus on color in Gris, and its relation to emotional synesthesia, I interpret this antagonist as a literal amalgamation of all colors, and as such, a monstrous swirling mass of emotion. At several points of the game, the antagonist attempts to consume us, and indeed, my experiences with loss and grief have similarly threatened to consume me. Emotions are a very powerful thing, and they have the ability to color the perception of the world around us. It was with the wisdom of those who came before me, and the strength of the ones I consider close, that I was eventually able to navigate those times. The developers have stated in panels how important it was to them to focus on a more ambiguous concept instead of providing a specific event for the character. This enigmatic approach allowed the player to be more able to place their own experiences in connection to the game. The purpose of Gris wasn't to tell a specific story, but to showcase the natural reality of the rise and fall we experience in life. Thank you again for hanging out. Pretty heavy topic for today, but I simply can't recommend this game enough. I definitely had a good cry, but it was worth it. Have a good one.